All right, I think we're live. Instagram Live's still not working, but
There you go.
I think the others are. This is the Referrals While You Sleep show. Oh my gosh, I think we might go live on Instagram. I think we're there. I
We're
think
live.
what's better than going live in one place? How about three? Facebook,
That
Instagram, YouTube.
that and a free llama.
Everybody wants a free llama. And I'm excited. You're going to teach me something that I've not heard of before. And the context of this is I was thinking this weekend. Well, one of my good friends, he was wanting. We are talking this last week about marketing his mortgage practice, and I was like, "Hey, what's your dream come true scenario?" He said, "Man, if I could just have a consistent, reliable, predictable um, number of transactions coming month over month over month,
Right.
enough to, provide a legacy for my family, something that my kids can come join. I still have the time off. Um,
Right.
and, I love this. He's one of my favorite friends, favorite clients. He's always trying out new things, looking for it. And so we were talking about this marketing program, and most marketing programs that I've seen, what they end up doing is charging you $2,000 a month for a 25-hour a week job. And this program promised real estate riches through YouTube. And I've got a friend that actually did it this last year, and she gave him about 24 grand and got two deals out of it over the year.
Right.
And she's spending 25 hours a week doing it. And so I was talking with Mark, and I was like, you know what? I don't think you're going to get that with your mortgage or your real estate practice. There's a few people I know. You work with a couple people that like they live and die real estate.
Right.
Aaron is probably one. But I mean, how
Right.
much does he work? I'm
A
I'm
lot.
assuming I'm assuming a lot,
Yeah. Yeah. Quite a bit. Yeah. Absolutely.
and he loves it, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And so that was kind of one of my realizations, and I was really scared when I saw that. Like, oh my gosh! Like, the truth is, I think I need to tell. I need to tell my clients this. Like, hey, this is what Referrals While You Sleep did for me. I've got an amazing practice. I make a good six figures,
Right.
and my goal is to leverage my business, optimize it, so that it requires as little of me, as little time as possible.
Right.
Um, uh, Boston Consulting Group, they've got this idea of, you got cash cows and star principals. You got different businesses, um, and like just saying it now, it's kind of scary to say,
Right.
and I really feel it's true. It's the only way that I've done it. I've used my real estate practice to create a bunch of free time to build a business that's scalable for the long term.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that, yeah, the reality with real estate is it's a complex enough thing that it takes a specialist to do it well. Right. And it takes somebody who is very intrinsically motivated, which means that it's, in my opinion, basically impossible to hire for in the same way that you typically hire. Right. When you think of like a business that like McDonald's, they hire for something that's very hireable. Right. It's not that it's completely unskilled. You develop a skill set, but the requirements in order to do the work required to even manage something like a McDonald's, work at a McDonald's, it's all very teachable to a really wide variety of people. Now, are the skills of real estate really teachable? Sure, but they they require dedication. They require a certain level of grit to get through the hard parts, to make enough income for it to make you enough money. And And to get through that, you have to have enough, either a big enough dream or enough determination to actually get through that process to develop that skill set. And even once you've developed it, it still sort of takes that like expertise to navigate the chaos of any of the transactions. Even like somebody like yourself, you have done a really good job to optimize like every deal that you do is about as easy as is possible in the real estate world, because you've really optimized around who you're working with and that sort of idea. But even with that, every deal is somewhat unique for sake of, you have to show up as an expert. You know how to do the dance, how to adapt to the things. So, but like, it would not function without your expertise, right? And so you have to have somebody that's the expert in order to do that, which means that you can't do the things that ultimately build you that long-term scalability of of having extreme leverage through employees or software, right? Like you can't do that in real estate in the same ways that you can with other vehicles, other mechanisms that could potentially really grow you that generational kind of wealth, right? And yeah, I think a lot of people are trying. I think I think we see things that get you closer, that are like there are strong ways to do that and really hard ways to do that. And I think you figured out, to me, one of the absolute best ways that I've seen. But for the people that are for the people that are really want to wrestle that really complicated thing, I think even some of the principles in Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I think like thinking about how you pull together buyers agents and sellers agents and staff, and like you could have elements of it, I think, where you can build an organization that's at least doing more than you would do by yourself. But I think it still really like ultimately comes down to, I have never seen somebody build it to a point where they don't have to kind of keep stepping back in, right? Because the nature of the recruiting and atrophy and churn that happens with agents, because this is a hard thing to do. So even if you're like working as a listing agent or a buyer's agent on somebody else's team, ultimately like they graduate out of that at some point, right? And their dreams get bigger, their goals change, and so they don't exist in that forever, right? And so you kind of constantly have that process, and because it's complicated, you might have to step back into production for periods of time, and so it's not this thing that you fully step away from, right? Like not by itself. And what's powerful about what you figured out is you figured out, well, let's sort of take that as a given, right? Like, let's take I'm going to have to be the expert ultimately. How can I make that take the least amount of time possible? And how can I make that be as optimized as possible, so that in the time that I save, I could build out other things that are more scalable, etc. Or even without that, where it's like, in that time I could just have that time with my family, which is part of what you optimize for as well, right? So yeah, I kind of went off on a little bit of a rant there. Where ultimately do you want to bring that conversation?
Yeah, I like that. The best example, I love Keller Williams. That's where I started. I've read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, or listened to it. I mean, I just listened to it for the first like 4 years, just over and over and over, and worked at that. And all right, how do I build a 7-level business where I moved from the basically self-employed owner to eventually, like, I'm the shareholder basically.
Right.
And I was like, all right, well, that's probably not going to work in this business.
Right.
But looking at Gary Keller, he's the one that wrote the book. How many times has he tried to step away from Keller Williams and
Right.
put in someone else to be the chairman of the board or the president? And every time, so far, he's had to step back in
Right.
because, of the vision there.
Right.
And, the kind of leads to the idea, the people that I've seen that like have a kind of a career in real estate, it still requires their expertise, but
Right.
they've kind of got some little niche. Like one of my friends, he's got one person that sends him about 20 deals a year, has
Right.
for like 10 years, and he takes care of them. I've got someone else, she's really, really good at probate, and that's kind of her thing. But both of them also, they don't have to do real estate.
Right.
They do it because they love it.
Right.
Um, and I think that what my is real estate's most fun when you don't have to have it.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and I was thinking about like why is that? Like what's different? I've got some friends that have ran some insurance companies.
Right.
And insurance companies and real estate have something similar in that you recruit a bunch of 1099 employees.
Right.
Most of them are not going to make it,
Right.
but that's okay. And then the ones that do make it, they're probably going to graduate out and go on their own if they're really, really good.
Right.
However, what happens with insurance is the 1099 employees, you bring in four, maybe one does good. Well, the other three might bring in, 12 people each. Well, those 12 people are now with you and you get some kind of recurring if they don't leave.
Right.
With real estate, what I've seen when I built my team, uh, when my team members left, they took all of the leads with them because they had the relationship. And in fact, from my perspective, the reason I use showing agents instead of buyer agents is because even some people that were like my friend's sphere of influence then became closer with my buyer's agents.
Right.
And so that's one thing different there. We've got, you of course you got the markets up and down, but then you've got all the 1099 employees that you have to deal with, the other
Right.
agent, the appraiser, the home inspector. There's so much where, I mean, it really is a battle of, um, like it's a saturated market that's always changing.
And really, like, the natural state of any real estate deal is that it wants to fall apart. Right? Like, it does
Yeah.
not want to work. It does not want to go successfully. It's like this thing trying to escape any way it possibly can. And so keeping it together really is like kind of holding the thing together. That's what you're signing up for, right? Like, you're signing up for this thing that wants to fall apart. It's your job to herd the cats, keep it together, keep the thing on on trajectory toward closing. And and I think that honestly, that's not typically the way it is with most transactions. I don't think it's not that, like, like somebody, as a for instance, most people, you walk in to buy a car, like, that's your goal. That's
Right.
and most often, if that's what you're trying to do, like, it's probably going to go through, right? You're going to be able to make that work. And there, sure, there's always cases where that falls out, but like, yeah, something about with houses, it's like there's so many factors that come into play that they just, the deals want to fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time, I mean, imagine if every time you bought a car, you hired an independent inspector who thought the way that he earned his money was to point out everything that this car has that the new cars don't, because if you
Right.
buy a resale house, so a lot of home inspectors are like, well, this isn't up to current code, and here's what the new homes have
Right.
and then you've got all the paperwork for the lender that, I mean, the reason homes in Tennessee usually take 30 days to close is it takes 30 days to get the loan. You know,
Right.
um, if it's a cash
And
deal,
that
we can close in a few.
and the people who are going to give you money, sometimes they care about what that home inspector has to say, sometimes they don't.
Right.
Sometimes things are a really big deal and they can't move forward at all. Sometimes it's not a big deal and it's only up to you whether you care or not. Anyway.
And then you've got the appraiser. You don't know
Right.
what they're going to say. Most of the time it's good.
Right.
And then you're dealing with emotions. Like, well, a lot of times it's from death or maybe debt or divorce. Sometimes it's just, a promotion or wanting to get closer
Yeah.
to work. You've had babies,
Right.
like, some of my favorite clients this year, they had a baby,
Right.
and it's stressful to move homes while you've got a newborn.
Right.
It's stressful
I
to
can
have a
attest.
newborn.
I can attest. That is certainly true.
Yeah, and so like, I think, you know, I was thinking about my conversation with Mark, and I think the idea is, I think the real estate game is a grind, and like if you want the freedom that you want, like optimize your practice to its bare minimum, stop trying to 10x your business and focus on like 10xing your life.
Right.
Let's make your current work generate, it's kind of more passive income. I mean, I tell everybody I work 15 hours a week because it feels embarrassing to tell people that sometimes I work five. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and
um,
shoot, that reminds me of the 4-hour work week because uh Tim Ferriss talked about that concept too. He said actually a lot of the time I'm working 2 hours, but when we tested the timing, people didn't believe 2 hours, but they believed four.
right, right.
So he
Yeah,
actually overestimated how much he was working at times. But yeah,
yeah. And I mean, the way that my real estate practice works now, like it's really amazing. Like I've got this
right,
compound interest of I meet new people, 15% of the people that I know are going to move each year. I'm
right,
building the trust and authority really on autopilot.
right,
And so when they're ready, they know to come to me. Um, it's real estate, at least for the last, I don't know, 50 years, it's been inflation proof,
right,
because you get paid a percentage. So that's
right,
great, you know. And so then what are you going to do with the time and the freedom that you've got? Like if your dream is to build, a legacy business, what I love is let me help you do what I've done with referrals while you sleep. Like, let's
right,
find out like, what is, as Naval says, what's work to others but play to you. What are
right,
your superpowers? You know,
right,
you've learned a lot in real estate. I mean, like I ran a business before real estate, but I've learned so much, like what it's like to be a local business.
right,
My finances are a whole lot better now. How do you deal with this kind of variable income?
right,
Um, I'm much better at negotiation. So, like, I think the real estate world is a great incubator,
right,
to learn. And then, you know, how do you get control of your time? And it's kind of I don't know. I've never heard anyone say this before. If your goal is $1 million a year with a life, and you want a legacy with a business that keeps compounding, real estate's probably not it if you want the freedom. Like some people have made it, but they're still working in it 60, 80 hours a week.
right.
And
And
my suggestion, if you're gonna
to
do
be
that,
clear,
there's probably
being a
better.
real estate agent, right? To be a real estate
Right.
agent specifically, right?
Yeah. And but the trap is you're a real estate agent, you want freedom, so you build a team, but you lose freedom and gain expenses.
Right,
Uh, and then you're like, okay, I need freedom, so I'm going to become a broker. And so now instead of recruiting clients, you're recruiting realtors, and
right,
they're 1099 people. And usually what ends up happening is you got less freedom and you got more expenses.
right,
And, some of my good friends, they coach some of the top realtors that if you saw their names, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know them.
right,
They got the biggest numbers, but when they actually looked at their real P&L,
right,
I don't know if me and you have ever shared this. Um, Almost all their profit comes from their sphere.
right,
Like,
right,
their team may be doing 1,000 transactions,
right,
but like their profit primarily comes from their sphere or their own business. Like maybe
right,
they generate the leads themselves, they close them because having a team with the cost of sale, even if it's 30%, and then you got the lead cost, and like it really shrinks quick.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, that adds up. I mean, shoot, I've seen like it that kind of problem is pretty prevalent in real estate regardless. I even heard people finding that their listing business would supplement the cost to do the buy side business, right? That their buy side wasn't really
Right.
profitable, and so the profits that they were getting on listings were actually really going to throw the money away to try and secure buyers. So yeah, but that sort of idea of sometimes what's working, it could actually be more powerful if you didn't do all the other stuff you think you needed to do, right? Like it could just be that if you just focused on that portion, that that that's really where you can make the most money, and it's more about not wasting money as opposed to needing to figure out some way to really maximize something else. But and really that lends to, part of the issue that I think is, uh and what we sort of started with was this concept of, I think part of what's happening is that people are naturally prone to buy a lie that they don't realize that they're buying into. Uh, when it comes to like people, you know, people people in the real estate industry seem to want to be self-deluded, right? They seem to want to go after things that they've tried time and time again and haven't necessarily learned the lesson from. And you want to hear my, when I'm saying that, what I'm talking about is, oh, this types of leads was bad. Now I'm going to switch to this and it's going to solve all the problems. And I'm going to
Right.
switch to this and it's going to solve all the problems. Or I'm going to hire this coach. They're going to make this clear and it's going to solve all my problems. Um, and I feel like part of the problem is that people aren't learning the right lesson from some of that, or they're not
Right.
seeing what's actually happening. You want to hear why I think that is?
Yeah, please tell me.
So I think it has to do with the similar thing that I forget who it was. It was either Hostess or maybe not Hostess. Who does the Betty Crocker? I think might be who is the company that actually figured this out. But and it has to do with box cakes and what they figured out that they needed to do. And what's interesting is that they figured out that people's perception of whether or not like they made the cake what was actually just one egg. That they had box cakes that you could bake where all that you did is you just add water and you bake the thing, and it would, taste good, it would taste fine, it would turn out well, but like their sales weren't as good as when they required you to crack an egg and add the egg, because cracking the egg made you feel like I baked a cake. But when it was just adding water, people didn't feel that way, right?
Mhm.
And so I think
Yeah.
that same principle of there's almost something inside of people that they can't allow themselves to actually believe that it could be easy.
Mhm.
And so they keep looking for something that feels like, you look at it, it's like it feels like work, but it feels like the right work. And
Right.
and they're more prone to believe that than to believe maybe even the truth of what you figured out, which is, if I take a breath and I relax and just have the right things happening, which because of the day and age that we're in, you can have that be an easy process that scales on your behalf, where you're getting yourself out to the right people at enough of a frequency that deals naturally flow to you when they're ready, right?
Right.
I think there's a portion of people feel like the solution is something else. They feel like it's something that they have to, grind at. That's what they're used to. They're so trained to, I have to grind at this thing. I need to be cracking the eggs in order to make my cake, rather than it's like, sure, it's not like what you do with referrals while you sleep takes zero effort at all.
Right.
It is the closest thing that I could find that feels as close to that as possible. But you know, but people feel like they need to do more to it typically. And honestly, the level of peace, the level of energy that you'd have for other things, the level of relaxation that you can actually get if you just step back and say, maybe this could actually work. And
Right.
and you dive into it, like you've seen the fruit of that, right? You've seen the fruit of
Right.
that process of being able to have a system that really does just work on your behalf, that it isn't, this really complicated process of stuff. I mean, what you're doing is decently complicated, otherwise everyone would be doing it. But you've taken on the complication so that they don't have to. Whereas most coaching, most lead systems, really they kind of take on an easy part and leave the complicated part to you. Right?
Right.
You pay
Yeah.
the $2,000, 2,500 a month, and you get 25 hours of work a week for it, right? Like that's
Right.
that
Right.
that's what you're
Yeah.
handed in return.
Yeah. You're paying $100 an hour to work. Uh, they'll tell you what to do. You're kind of buying your boss, right?
Right. Right.
And I got this from my favorite marketers. Early on, he said, "People don't want a manual.
Right.
People don't want a workbook. Like people want it done with them, or really, they just want an easy button. They want it done
Right.
for them."
Right.
And I'm just crazy enough to think, well, let's give the people what they want. And it's kind of where it's led me is this idea of I think the other reason is like I really think the industry's lied to them. You've got
Yes.
these coaches that tell them like, what was your goals this last year? All right, double them. You know,
Right.
um, and there's something to be said of if you scale, it becomes less profitable
Right.
in real estate. Like it's very human intensive. Your lead costs double, then they double again. Your cost of sales double, then they double again.
Right.
Over and over and over. My friends that have been in the room with the people like they're profitable from their own deals.
Right.
And one of my favorites, you know, he he's got about 100 grand a month GCI, and he keeps about 90 grand of it. So
Right.
pretty good,
Right.
pretty good cost to sell. He uses assistants and showing agents.
Right.
Learned a lot from him. Like we trade ideas. I get mainly ideas from him. And I asked him, I was like, are you still thinking about getting out? And he's like, I don't know where anywhere else I'll make 4 grand an hour, which that's a pretty cool place to be.
Right.
And you know what he's doing with his extra time? He is building up residual businesses. Like
Right.
because I mean, imagine just 10 grand a month coming in, 5 grand a month coming in on autopilot. Even if
Right.
it's only for the next 4 months, changes the real
Right.
estate game. And if it's something that grows, probably about 20 years ago, one of my friends started a software business. And I remember about 3 years into it, it really took off. And he said,
Right.
Charlie, it's amazing. We're growing 10% month over month. And it wasn't, he wasn't working 10% more month over month. Like it
Right.
was growing, you know.
Right.
And like 20 years later, he's still running it. He travels, he plays bluegrass, like, I mean, it's slowly growing, hasn't grown a lot. There's, all these other business unicorns, but, you know, his kids, he's been able to spend time with his kids and he's got a great business,
Right.
he's got the freedom that he wants. And I think that's just the truth. Like, I think, your
Right.
broker that says, just do bold every year or, just make 100 calls today. I mean, it all works, but at what
Right.
cost?
And that's the key. Like that's why, I mean, like what we called this. It's like what they're scared to tell you. Here's the reality. It's not because typically it's just an unsaid thing, right? It's not nobody's lying. Yeah, if you make the calls, if you run the systems, if you do the coaching programs, if you buy the leads and work them right, like if you do all that, yes, it works. Like it all works, right? The thing that doesn't work is thinking that you're going to do that and that it's all going to get easier and that it's going to, definitely make you more money without requiring an equal amount of your time, right? Without requiring more of that, right? Like that's the part that's typically unsaid. It's like, yeah, you got to reach your dreams. Well, okay, you go after them. Okay. But if your dreams include having time with family, getting to do some of those other things, and you're not looking to increase your your net income at all costs, then it may not be what you're looking to do, right? It may not be really what you're looking for. And so, like, yeah, the good news though is that there is a way to kind of find that sweet spot, right? You call it a career that you never want to quit, right?
Right.
The the spot where, being honest, you will still have work to do. Real estate is a bit of a chaotic thing when you're actually in the midst of doing deals. The deals still want to fall apart. Um, you've done a great job at really figuring out who are the people I could work with that make that part as easy as possible. But it doesn't get rid of you know, that reality, right?
Right.
And then the deals themselves typically just come to you naturally because you've set up a system that brings them to you on autopilot in a way that feels easy, that doesn't require 25 hours of work a week. It's requires about 1 hour of
An
work
hour.
a week.
Yeah.
It- and quite honestly, if that, right?
Right.
Like, you could even do a poor job with it and let the thing just run on its own, and you'd actually be able to coast off of zero work if you really wanted to for quite a bit of time. Uh, I think long term that would atrophy, but uh,
Right.
but uh, but yeah, it's kind of amazing the way that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And like this isn't to like dismantle someone's dreams. It's really to
Right,
expand them.
right, right,
Like use what you've built, like not as an end, but like as a means to get the life that you want to get to, you know,
right,
like you're living to enjoy your work. And, that's really kind of what I've seen. That's what I'm building. That's what I've seen, and it's really a place of freedom to be able to, I don't know, I guess kind of admit the truth, you
right,
know, um, and like it is scary for me to
right,
say, if your dream is, to make millions a year, my tool isn't going to help you do it in real estate. You know
right,
what? And it's not built for that because I don't think that's my clients. It's not really what they want. But what we
right,
can do, we can help you 10x your life. We can make it almost semi-passive,
right,
you know, and then love helping people. Like find your superpower. Like let's walk together to like take what I've learned over the, since 2019, the last, 6 years,
right,
and let's see if we can help you get some shortcuts and find out what you're going to do next. While, all my mentors over the last few years, they've been like, Charlie, you would be dumb to stop doing real estate. You
right,
put time into it. You've built a practice. You got 6 figures a year coming to you. Like, what are you thinking? And I wanted to quit because I was so burnt out.
right,
And then really over this last year, I've realized like this really is a career I never want to quit. Like
right,
my clients are coming to me on autopilot. They're the best clients in the world. They ask me for my feedback. They take my guidance. They speak to my vendors. Um, it's amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing. And yeah, so that's kind of a big realization that I've had. And
right,
I guess there's some good things about it, which is like now that you know that, what does that free you up to do?
right, right,
Step one, I'd say stop going to your local broker sales meetings because they're going to try to sell you a new silver spoon every week. And you know, love on your clients. You know, find out what it is you want to do. What are the things that are work to you or that are work to others but seem like play to you?
right,
My question is, all right, how can I be playfully profitable? You
right,
know, and if I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do that. What does that mean?
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's I think we live streamed to 3 platforms today. That's kind of cool.
There you
We did
go.
that. And so what was your insight from this?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing to me is kind of looking at the things, trying to make sense of why people continue to go to what I would call like the tainted watering hole, right? Like why, like, it's like people dip down to take a drink, they taste the water, like, oh, that's bitter, and they go again. Ah, oh, that's bitter, right? It's so it versus why are they not going somewhere else? And I think part of it is because there's like part of the work of this isn't in changing what you're doing, but it's in giving yourself permission to think that it's possible for it to look different, right? Giving yourself permission to say that it's possible that this could actually be easy, that it could
Right.
be done in a way that feels energy giving rather than energy draining. That it really could be something that I'm not trying to escape, but something that I enjoy doing. But I want to leverage the spare time that I have to, to maybe get the aspect that maybe I can't get through this, which is, that thing that's fully passive or fully legacy building or some of those financial levels. Um and yeah, just that idea of I think we have a hard time believing that something doesn't take a ton of work when that's kind of what everybody's teaching. That's what you see constantly. That's what you hear constantly. And it's mostly that you never get to hear the full picture. You never get to hear, you know, you never get to hear from the people that are like, yeah, making all this money. Uh, I haven't been to my kid's birthday in a number of years. I don't get to go to any other sporting events. I have to take calls when I feel like I should be at the birthday party. Like, you're not hearing them talk about those things because like everybody thinks that like they're trying to sell the next dream, right? They're trying to keep everybody, in with them. But and then honestly, the people that have figured out something like you, most of them don't need to be selling somebody else on anything, right? So they're like, if
Right.
if they're doing something that works, like what you've done, like really the biggest thing that I think makes it why there's an opportunity with you is that you're trying to capture and bottle what you figured out what has worked so well for yourself into something that aspect could be your legacy. That aspect could be your
Right.
single thing, right? And so, you're getting to say, "Hey, it's worked for me. I'd just love to share this with you." And you do it at a very reasonable cost, and the results are drastically better than the cost comparatively as well. So, yeah, anyway, I highly encourage people, definitely here's the benefit. I would encourage people to call BS on all of it. And there's a really easy way that you could do that, which is you make available a 90-day trial to try out the system without having to pay for it and to see what you think. And I don't know of anybody else that will do work for 3 months without getting paid. Well, I do. Their names are real estate agents. So it's a very real estate style offer where it's like the same thing that you know buyers and sellers ultimately kind of expect of their real estate agent. You're like, hey, I'll jump into the same deal. I'll work in advance of getting paid and let the work itself validate whether or not you want to continue. I don't know of any other marketing company that really does that. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a powerful offer. So, referralswhileyouSleep.com. I would definitely check it out.
I think thanks Alex Hormozy for his book offers that are so good you feel dumb saying no. And
Right.
I want to leave it like with this because you mentioned something like why do people keep wanting to crack the egg and work harder?
Right.
And so just last night I was talking to may get emotional thinking about this. I was talking to Coleman,
Right.
and he said, "Man, Dad, I need to talk to you." And um, so someone had hurt his feelings, and he's like, "I don't think that I'm loved." And I was like, "Well, thank you for telling me." And at the end, he's like, "Because there's this fear that if I say it out loud, I'm gonna, it's true, or I'm gonna be judged." And
Right.
like we just sat there and talked, and um, you know, at the end, I was like, "Man, it's brave that you shared that with me."
Right.
And we went through that, and he said, "Man, I feel like that's one of the bravest things that I did was to share this with
Hmm.
you." And what it reminds me of with my real estate practice, I mean, for so many years, I was embarrassed about the fact that I didn't want to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week.
Right.
Like, I wanted to serve my clients and travel the world with, my friends and family.
Right.
And, when I hired people, I didn't tell them that truth. And, one of the bravest things that I did was to kind of take a deep breath and be like, my job's to work, my goal's to work, max 15 hours a week in my practice,
Right.
spend time with my kids, learn jujitsu, travel the world, build other businesses. Like, I'm
Right.
never going to stop solving problems.
Right.
And, I think there's probably a lot of people that, have that same stigma. Like, hey, it's okay to like build a practice where your expertise is only needed for so long, you
Right.
know. Um, and so I'm proud of Coleman last night, and I'm proud that I finally said, look, I don't want your business planning clinic that's going to have me work, 25 extra hours a week for the
Right.
next year. I really want to work less and be in the best shape of my life and have time to like talk to my son. Like, can you
Right.
imagine if I was working my ass off
Right.
and then I was too exhausted to have that conversation with him last night?
Right.
Like 10 years ago, that was me,
Right.
I probably would have been exhausted and drunk and just trying to make it through the day because I was emotionally beaten and battered. And so now I'm
Right.
present. That's super cool. And
Absolutely.
that's my goal. So I'm
Love
glad
it.
we did this. We actually had some people join us on Instagram. Kind of
Nice.
cool. And thanks, Zach. This was the Referrals While You Sleep show.
You got it.
Bye.